Good morning, this is Eric Kampmann with Chuck Davis, and we're talking about Chuck's book, The Bold Christian, which will be out in early 2016. Chuck, in one of the early chapters of the book, you have a headline called Forfeited Privilege and Complicated Stewardship. Let me just read, and then I'd love you to comment on this. When Adam and Eve chose to obey Satan instead of God, they, to some degree, gave Satan legal right to rule on the earth. It is not my purpose to go into detail regarding the narrative of the fall. I will simply note that the order God created out of chaos was turned back to chaos through a usurped authority structure. I love this idea, this counterpoint that you have of out of chaos, and then a decision made in the garden returns us to a chaos which is kind of a counterfeit kingdom in a way.
Yeah, I think it is one way of addressing the problem of pain and evil in the world. I hear this line often. I have a hard time believing in a God who allows bad things to happen. If God didn't allow the possibility for bad things, he wouldn't be a loving God. He would just be running a puppet show from heaven. And as we talked earlier about, in that risk of loving, he gave us the opportunity to rebel. But when we rebelled as humanity, at that moment, what happened was that Satan didn't rob God's authority. Satan robbed our authority and took what was meant to be a perfect stewardship of what God had created good and made it messy. And so the rest of the story of history from the fall is this conflict that's going on between the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. And we're the players in the midst of that, and trying to bring it back to the order that God designed. And God's design was not for pain and broken relationships and the mess that we see today. We're the ones who did that, and nothing takes away from God's glory. His glory will always be there. He calls us to work with him to put it back in the right order.
You use the word stewardship, and I just love you to elaborate just a little bit, because it's a word used a lot, but in our special relationship to God, exactly what does stewardship mean?
It means that we're managers, not owners. So the time that I'm given on this earth, and people say, well, that's my time. No, that's God's time. I'm figuring out how to manage it. The talents that I've been given in life. We're all born with special skills, and we have spiritual gifts in us, and sometimes we hoard those for ourselves. No, those were given to us by God to steward them and to grow in them. The treasure that we have, our financial gain, and a treasure that we often don't think about, our kids. Our kids, we don't own our kids. They're not our kids. They're really God's kids. We've been given the managerial aspect of raising them up to understand God's way. And so stewardship is simply saying all of this, even the time that we're living in and the energy that you and I have, belongs to God. And someday I'm going to have to give an account of how I've used the blessing and the opportunities that he put in my life.
That's extremely helpful. This is Eric Kampmann with Chuck Davis. We've been talking about his book, The Bold Christian. Have a great day.